Hegseth rebrands the Pentagon as a War Department in Quantico address. According to an official transcript, Secretary of State Pete Hegseth addressed general and flag officers at Marine Corps Base Quantico, Virginia, just yesterday. He declared, quote, "The era of the Department of Defense is over, rebranding the mission as pure warfighting. Those who long for peace must prepare for war." Hegseth said the department's only mission is preparing to win, vowed peace through strength, and announced 10 directives restoring male combat standards, adding mandatory twice-yearly PT test and ordering a rollback of what he called woke policy. He framed the push as culture and readiness reform, promising merit-based promotions and fewer administrative trainings. "We are liberating commanders and NCOs." He also said allies must step up and called for more munitions, submarines, B-21 bombers, A-1 cyber and space capabilities. In a line that drew notice, he warned enemies could be crushed by the violence, precision, and ferocity of the War Department, adding, "If necessary, our troops can translate that for you." FAFO. Okay, let's actually look at his words. Some of you may know the fact that most of my career is about training people how to give presentations like this. I have worked with military leaders, but I've also worked with presidents of countries, prime ministers, Nobel Peace Prize winners, business leaders, CEOs of Fortune 500 companies on how to give presentations effectively, confidently. So I want to take a moment and let's just look at some of this together. And I will be analyzing this not just from a message standpoint, but from a technique standpoint, from a skills perspective, and doing this in a fairly non-ideological, non-partisan way, all with the goal of helping you become a better presenter. So let's dive right into this. Again, I've not looked at this, so I'm giving you my earnest, unfiltered, there's no sound bites prepared here on my part. I want to just give you my analysis as a professional presentation skills coach. So we're going to take a look at that right now. Let's go ahead and play the video.
Please.
So I like that he's not, I'm going to give it to you positive and negative. And if you love him and his agenda, or you hate him and his agenda, I'm probably going to say something that you're not going to like, because I'm going to be praising parts of what he does and also criticizing parts. I will say he is very well groomed. He does talk about grooming, I've heard in news reports, but he always has a perfectly fitting suit. His hair's always perfectly in place. More about that in a moment. And he looks poised and confident right from the beginning. Okay, he pauses there. I like that. When you pause at the beginning of the speech, it sort of arouses curiosity. It doesn't make you seem as nervous, because nervous speakers tend to rush. They're very quick to get started. So I like the fact that he actually paused for a moment.
Well, Mr. Chairman, the Joint Chiefs.
So he did something right there. He didn't just read from the teleprompter, say, "Mr. Chairman, Joint Chiefs." He looked in the direction of the chairman, presumably. He actually gestured to the Joint Chiefs. This is the mark of a good speaker. You come across more confident that way. In the moment, you create the illusion of just not reading a speech. So that's good.
Generals, commanders, officers, senior enlisted, NCOs, enlisted, and every member of our American military. Good morning. Good morning, and welcome to the War Department.
So he says good morning. They say good morning back. He then laughs. I don't think that's especially good or bad. It does send a message that he's feeling loose. You could construe it as a nervous laughter, but I don't think there's a problem with that.
The era of Department of Defense is over. You see,
so a couple of interesting things here. He starts off with a big, bold statement to get attention. From a public speaking standpoint, that's a good thing. He's starting off with something interesting, provocative to get attention. The era of the Defense Department is over. Now, he started off his speech in a conventional way, getting behind the lectern, the way virtually all politicians do, and the way the president later in the day when he spoke did. And now he's moving around. So that arouses curiosity. When you move on a stage, you do several things to the audience. You are sending a message to them. Hey, I'm supremely confident. Hey, I'm just not going to bore you and read from text right here. So it forces the audience to move their head to follow you too. So it's less boring typically. So we are only 46 seconds into the speech. So he's already doing something that typically you don't see in presentations like this or any government presentation. And typically you don't see it even at big conferences in the private sector, unless it's the section where it's a professional speaker. Now, he is a professional communicator. He arguably has a lot more skills and experience as a communicator than he does as a soldier or warrior because of his many, many years as a talk show host on the Fox News channel. Let's watch more.
The motto of my first tune, those peace must prepare for war. It's not a new idea. This crowd knows it. The origin.
Okay, so he's walking out. He's walking towards soldiers. That makes him seem supremely comfortable, supremely confident. Now, I can't tell. There do appear to be floor monitors there. So I don't know if he's still reading a full script or if he just has bullet points. But I give him a lot of credit. He's coming across extraordinarily confident, authoritative, walking right out, getting away from that protection of the lectern, which many people call it a podium, but it's actually a lectern. Soldiers, to give himself a little more credibility, presumably, and gravitas, because let's face it, there are many people across the political spectrum who worry about his credentials because he has many, let's just be charitable, many fewer credentials to be a Secretary of Defense than really any other Secretary of Defense in the nation's history. The battles he won were a lot more likely to be on cable TV. And he's someone who has a track record of a lot of mismanagement. And I'm not here to pick apart his whole career here or relitigate whether he should have been confirmed. Let's look in more detail on exactly how he's presenting, because you're keeping score. I've been a lot more complimentary so far than negative in how he's presenting.
By our first commander-in-chief, George Washington, the first leader.
I like the fact that he's not holding papers. He's not holding clickers. He's simply speaking. He's moving his hands. He's moving his body. He stopped in one spot to make a dramatic point. Transition, he moved across the stage. Now, the truth is, this is not hard to do, but very few people in government do this. Professional speakers do it. It's not really hard to do, but it does convey authority and confidence.
Of the War Department. It captures a simple yet profound truth. To ensure peace, we must.
I like that he's not rushing. He's putting in excellent cadence. He's pausing for dramatic effect. He sounds conversational. If he is reading a teleprompter, and I'm not there are teleprompters set up behind him and there appear to be floor screens. If he is reading the teleprompter, he's reading it extremely well. The big problem most people have with teleprompters is it flattens their voice, makes their speed consistent, their volume consistent, their tonality consistent. He's not doing that. He's doing it exactly as you would want to. He sounds like he's having words come out of his heart in an authentic way.
Prepare for war. From this moment forward, the only mission of the newly restored Department of War is this: warfighting. Preparing for war.
The only mission is this. He stops, he pauses, he doesn't move, then he delivers the key. It's warfighting. So that is technically almost perfect from a pure technique standpoint of public speaking. He's moving, but he's not just going back and forth. Let me show this in a little more detail. The problem some people have when they are moving on stage is they're walking here, they're walking back, and it seems like pacing. It's too consistent. Or they're going back and then in front and back and front. He's not doing that, to his credit. He is speaking in a way that is completely consistent with accentuating his key points. He wants to make a big point, a dramatic point. He stops. All eyes have to focus on it. He delivers it. Transition, pause, transition, walk a few more steps. That is exactly what good speaking is. Now, in a moment, I understand he will be talking about good grooming. He is, I would argue, for the most part, walking the talk. I do not see a single wrinkle or crease in his jacket, his tie, his shirt. So he does walk the talk in that regard. Let's watch more.
Preparing to win, unrelenting and uncompromising in that. Not because we want war. No one here wants war, but it's because.
Not because we want war. Nobody wants war. So he's coming across conversational. That doesn't sound like that was written for the eye. And that's the problem with most speeches, whether you're a government official or high-level official at a company, is when you write speeches, it often looks good for the eye, but it doesn't sound good. That sounded good to the ear. Nobody wants war. It sounded conversational. It sounded in the moment. And again, if he is using the teleprompter, he's doing it extraordinarily well, because he's maintaining excellent eye contact with his audience. So I give him credit for that. I would certainly imagine, he is someone known for placing a lot of importance on presentation, communication, image. So I have no internal access or sources. I would certainly suspect that he actually rehearsed on that stage numerous times to the point where maybe not memorized, but he internalized the presentation so much that regardless of whether you have the teleprompter there or not, it wouldn't matter. He was able to deliver it in a way where it really seems like he's owning it.
Because we love peace for our fellow citizens.
So he did something there that is significant for a couple of reasons. He said, we love peace. We love peace for our fellow citizens. So he's using repetition. Martin Luther King Jr. did it. I have a dream. All great speakers do. But it typically doesn't get into a written speech. He used repetition, but then his eyebrows went up for emphasis. The head angle changed. The voice tone changed. It makes it more interesting to listen to. It makes the person seem more like a real person. Again, continued movement, not the normal, boring standing behind the lectern.
Deserve and they right expect us to deliver.
And he's using excellent pause. They deserve peace, where his hand motions are in sync with it. They deserve peace. The hand motions were in sync, then the pause, movement, the next point. This is all excellent public speaking technique.
Our number one job, of course, to be strong so that we can prevent war in the first.
So here he's looking up, and I haven't seen the full room. I'm assuming that's because there is a second floor, perhaps a mezzanine or a balcony level, and he wants to include those people. Sometimes you see people giving eye contact, but they're giving a narrow range of the 20 or 30% right in front of them. He seems like he's really trying to include the entire audience, and there were at least 800 people, perhaps more, in the audience. So I give him credit for that. You want to make everyone in the room feel included, like you care about them.
Place. The president talks about it all the time. It's called peace through strength.
It's called peace through strength. The president talks about it all the time. The speed went up. It's called peace, pause, through, pause, strength. Now, for the moment, I'm not talking about the intellectual substance of the message. We can talk about that later. But from a pure technique standpoint, what he's doing is great. It's providing emphasis. There's tremendous variety. The head is moving, the face is moving, the body's moving. The speed goes up, it goes down. There's pausing to essentially underline key words. That's excellent.
And as history teaches us, the only people who actually deserve are those who are willing to wage war, defend it. That's why pacifism is so naive and dangerous.
So substantively, here he is talking about history, and he's lecturing generals and career soldiers, many of whom who fought in hundreds of battles, have seen so many fellow soldiers killed next to them. Here I do think he runs the risk of seeming like the young neophyte, and he certainly has a lot less experience than most secretaries of defense, lecturing people about, the philosophical underpinnings of what war is about. I'm not sure he's reading the audience there, because I would be willing to bet a lot of the soldiers there are thinking, who is this guy who has spent a lot more time in the green room getting makeup on in Fox News Channel than he ever spent in battlefields to lecture us about the meaning of war? I have to assume that even though no one's booing, they're not going to do that. Generals are not going to boo the Secretary of Defense. I think inwardly, a lot of them are doing an eye roll right now.
It ignores human nature and it ignores human history. Either you protect your people and your sovereignty, or you will be subservient to something or someone. Truth as old as time. And since waging war is so costly in blood, treasure, we owe our republic a military that will win any war we choose.
So one thing I think that has to be said now, again, in his favor, he's smooth. And I don't mean that in a negative way. A lot of times people say, oh, that speaker's too smooth, too slick. That's really what they say quite often when they can't find anything else to complain about. But there's been no awkward stumbles, no ums, no uhs, no ers, no you knows, no verbal tics of any sort. He is clearly, regardless of where you stand on his politics, extraordinarily articulate. He is clearly an excellent communicator. Arguably, that is his number one strength and why he was selected for this position is to be a good communicator on TV. That has certainly come out from a lot of insiders' analysis of how Trump thinks when he selects cabinet officials. But again, we are now several minutes in, close to the 3-minute mark. Not a single stumble, not a single awkwardness, not a single misspoken word. Everything seems perfect. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. There are some who feel, oh, that person's too perfect, I can't relate to it. A lot of times when people say a speaker is too perfect, what they mean is they're too rigid and they're kind of reading bullet points without stumbling. That's not what he's doing. He really is communicating at every level with his voice, his movement, his eyes. He's using every tool in the communicator's toolkit.
Or any war that is thrust. Should our enemies choose foolish to challenge us, they will be crushed by the violent precision and ferocity of the War Department. In other words, to our enemies, FAFO. If necessary, our troops can translate that. Another way to put it is
some kind of tough guy talk, got a little bit of a chuckle, and it's hard to get chuckles out of generals. And excuse my own ignorance, I don't even know what that stands for. But the drum of stopping, pointing, leaning in, saying something that sounds like a tough guy, and did get a chuckle out of the audience. So that time that worked well.
Peace through strength, brought to you by the warrior, and we are restoring both. As President Trump has said, and he's right, we have the strongest, most powerful, most lethal, and most prepared military on the planet. That is true, full stop. Nobody can touch it. It's not even close. This is true largely because of the historic investments that he made in his first term, and we will continue in this.
So again, I want to praise him for some level. He is speaking in a way that is extraordinarily comfortable, confident, relaxed, authoritative. Now, many people can do this if they're talking one-on-one. A lot of people can do this if they are in a room where they know everyone and they're comfortable and they're thinking on their feet and they're in front of 10 or 20 people. But he's in a room with 1,000 people and it's being streamed live on international TV everywhere in the world. And it's being recorded on video that people will be able to watch forever. So that is a high stress situation. I don't care who you are, even if you're a president, when you've got that much attention and you know you're live and so much media coverage, and there are a lot of people in the room, what happens to people is the nervousness shuts their brain down. The adrenaline starts flowing and your body's sending a message out, run, there's danger. Escape, go away. So your body is making your brain not work as effectively in most cases. Your ability to recall facts, to remember your next point, doesn't work as well because your body is saying, run, get out of here. He is showing absolutely no signs of nervousness or discomfort. Now, he spent a lot of time as a professional speaker too, presumably during his tenure as a host on Fox News Channel. That's one of the perks. You get high-paid speaking gigs when you are seen on national TV. So at this point, from a pure technique standpoint, he is operating at the level of an extremely high-level, highly paid, six-figure motivational speaker and presentation expert. He's really operating at a high level. A lot of people can quibble. We'll spend just a little time on this. Are the messages really resonating? Because there was, in fact, a lot of criticism about, we might be going to war and you want to bring all of our generals in one room. Aren't they sitting ducks? Isn't that a security risk, number one? Number two, isn't this a massive waste of money given all the travel charges, the fact that the government's about to shut down, and the military has invested a fortune in telecommunications equipment so that there can be communication around the world all at the same time without people having to travel. So there's that backdrop of that. He's an interesting speaker. If you asked the typical general there, wow, did you learn something here that you never heard before? I'm willing to bet the answer is no. If you asked a general, is there something here that was conveyed that couldn't have been conveyed through Zoom or whatever the military uses as their own version of the Zoom, I'd be willing to bet they would say no. Now, I do want to comment on some of his comments on grooming. He spent a fair amount of time, and we can't get that far into the speech today, saying that no more beards, no more beardos. Now, this is a little bit weird, given the fact that the Vice President of the United States wears a beard. So that, to me, it seemed a little odd to spend so much time talking about appearance. So we don't want long hair. Now, the interesting thing is there have been times in our country's culture where having the greased hair look back in was the sign of being a juvenile delinquent. They called them greasers back in the 1950s and early 60s sometimes. So styles can change. So it did seem a bit odd. Now, he's clearly someone who places a lot of importance in appearance. His suits are always perfectly fitted. They're always buttoned. You don't see his tie loosened. You don't see hairs out of place. So he does practice what he preaches, but he did spend a fair amount of time talking about, we want people to look tough, essentially. We don't want people looking like weirdo. I'm paraphrasing there, but he essentially is saying we don't want people to look like they're weird. We don't want beards. We don't want long hair. I must remind people of this is what Pete Hegseth looks like without a shirt. Now, he wasn't up there shirtless, but there was certainly a time in our country's culture and in the military where, other than having the sailors would have the anchor tattooed on an arm, but there was certainly time in our nation's history when having this many tattoos all over your body was considered the sign of a delinquent or a ne'er-do-well. I'm not saying that's what it means, but it does seem odd for him to spend so much time talking about the physical appearance, no beards, no long hair, you got to be mainstream, certainly none of this sissy woke stuff. And here's a guy who, until a few years ago, would be considered very much out of the mainstream of conservative ethos, which he's talking about, because conservatives typically didn't believe in, covering up your body with ink. And something tells me if you're aspiring to be a general and you had tattoos all over your face, that might not go over too well with the Hegseth crowd. But where do you draw the line? It used to be you couldn't have them all up and down your arm and on your body. Apparently now you can. It seems a bit arbitrary. The other thing he did talk about and mention explicitly is we don't want fat soldiers. Now, I'm not saying he was fat shaming, and I agree that all things being equal, if you have soldiers who are out in the field and hand-to-hand combat, being in tip-top shape is important. And he does appear to take his physical fitness very seriously. He's out exercising all the time. You can see from this shot, doesn't seem like he's fat at all, but almost this mockery of fat. It makes you wonder, what did the guy next to him think? Meaning the President of the United States, who does appear to have lost weight in the last 9 months. But by most measures, even conservative estimates, the President of the United States is overweight, if not grossly overweight, and in the past has been either there or almost officially at the obese level. So he's the commander in chief. Fat is bad. Are you criticizing the commander in chief? We don't have time to go through the entire presentation, but the real takeaway here is this guy is a skilled communicator. There's no doubt about it, and I don't want to seem like I'm picking on him. We'll bring back the other image of him because this is what he was like. He was not giving the speech in a bathing suit. So let me be clear about that. Pete Hegseth is a good communicator, a great communicator. We just went through the first 4 minutes, absolutely flawless from a sheer technical standpoint. Of course, a speech is never about purely the techniques. It is about the message. Is this a message that's going to resonate well with the audience of the military, the rest of the government, the Republican base, the citizens at large of the United States, and the world community? There were many, many audiences for this. Now, he has run for public office before. He was a failed candidate, I believe, for the United States Senate. He, by all accounts, has ambitions for higher office. So he has spent a lot of time honing this craft of being a great speaker, and you can see it on display here. Whether he's running for the governor, senator, or president in the near future, who knows? But certainly within Republican circles, I think he helped his cause with this speech. And he's definitely a skilled communicator. Claus writes in, such a good example, talking about his technical performance on stage, better analysis to teach us. TJ, thank you. Well, Claus, thank you, because my main mission here on this show, Filtered with TJ Walker, is to help. I don't know if I'll use the word teach, but to enlighten, educate, teach, inform, shine light on good practices to help you be more successful. You may love Pete Hegseth. He might be your role model, and you can learn from him. You may despise everything he stands for and still learn how to be a better speaker by analyzing the things he does well. Great communicators, I find, learn from everywhere. They don't only look at people they're in ideological agreement with. They don't only look at people of their same party. They look across the spectrum in different fields. Politics. You may hate TV preachers. You might not even like religion. I'm here to tell you, you can learn a lot by watching Joel Osteen give a sermon on TV because he's a world-class communicator. So that's what we're about here on Filter. He is learning how to be a better communicator, how to have personal development habits to make you more successful, and to do it through the lens of what's going on in the news. We've gotten a little overtime today, having so much fun analyzing speeches. I want to thank you for your time. Please remember to like this video, leave comments, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, follow. Any way you can interact in a positive way helps. Please leave reviews on every platform as well. Thanks so much. See you tomorrow.